Welcome to Animated English Story. Tonight's story is not just a story, it's a painful lesson about loneliness, fake love, and the price of attention. Welcome. Have you ever wondered what happens when a lonely boy trades his real happiness just to feel loved? She looked at me one last time and said, "It's okay now." I wanted to tell her everything, but the words just wouldn't come out. So dim the lights, wear your headphones, and enter the dark world of Zayan, where even shadows can speak. And remember, sometimes the people smiling around you are not your real friends. If you enjoy emotional and life-changing stories, don't forget to like, share, subscribe to Animated English Story. And
Zayan sat under the ancient oak, the world feeling heavy around him. His taped shoes and frayed cuffs were targets for the cruel whispers of other children. He kept his eyes fixed on the dry grass, waiting for the bell to end his solitude. As the sun dipped, Zayan stood to leave, but his shadow hesitated. It remained fixed on the earth, a dark anchor in the dust. He waved his hand in disbelief, only to see the shadow mimic the gesture with a slow, deliberate delay that chilled his blood. His heart hammered like a trapped bird. The shadow detached entirely, sliding across the dirt like spilled ink. It rose, unfolding into a tall, fluid silhouette that blocked his path to the village. Zayan pressed against the rough bark, gasping for air. The creature was no longer a reflection. It was an entity. Its edges flickered like a dying flame as it stood between him and the fading light. Every move he made was met with an unnatural grace that felt both terrifying and strangely familiar. The shadow knelt, beckoning him toward the deep woods. Zayan looked back at the empty village, then reached out. For the first time in his life, the boy who had nothing was no longer. Zayan stood motionless in the center of his bedroom, but the shadow on the wall had a mind of its own. It shifted its head slowly to the left, independent of its master. A faint, raspy whisper crawled from the floorboards, chilling the air. "I can bring you love, Zayan." Zayan pressed his back against the cold wall. "Who are you?" he stammered. The shadow stretched, its edges blurring like spilled ink. "I am your loneliness. I can make everyone adore you, but the price is your joy." Driven by years of being ignored, Zayan nodded without a second thought. The next morning, the world changed. Students stepped aside to let him pass. A boy shoved a sandwich into his hands, grinning. A girl sat beside him, whispering jokes. Zayan laughed. The sound felt hollow, like air escaping a punctured tire. He had the attention he craved, yet his chest felt incredibly heavy. As Zayan smiled at his new friends, his shadow tilted its head and grinned. Its eyes glowed with a faint, hungry light. His laughter was being siphoned away by the dark shape tethered to his days blurred into weeks as Zayan became the center of the world. Every hallway echoed with laughter meant for him. Yet, Zayan stood in the crowd, his face a carefully crafted mask. The joy he once craved felt like cold ash in his mouth. His shadow stretched long, its voice vibrating in his mind. "They love you now, Zayan, but they only love the version of you I created." Zayan gripped his desk, his knuckles white. "Why does this feel like a cage?" he whispered. The shadow coiled tighter. The laughter grew deafening, yet he felt underwater. Then, he saw him, a boy in the corner, invisible to the crowd, just as Zayan once was. He took a step forward, but an icy pain pierced his chest, forcing him to his knees. "Do not move," the shadow hissed. "Help him, and this illusion shatters. You will be alone again." Zayan froze, staring at his shadow not as a part of him, but as a captor. Zayan looked at his reflection in the dark window. "What are you?" he demanded. The shadow loomed closer. "I am the byproduct of neglect." He finally realized the applause was merely the sound of his own soul fading away. Weeks bled into months as the shadow stretched across the bedroom floor, its edges jagged and cold. Zayan walked the school halls, but his own warmth had vanished. He felt like a ghost draped in expensive clothes, drifting through a life that no longer felt like his own. On Tuesday, he saw a boy huddled by the lockers, shivering and invisible. Zayan saw his own reflection in that terrified stare. As he reached out, the shadow coiled around his ankle like ice. "Reach out," it hissed, "and the crowd will turn their backs on you." That night, Zayan sat in the silence, "Why is there a hole in my chest?" he demanded. The shadow did not blink. "Because the adoration you crave is made of smoke," it replied. "They look at you, but they see nothing." Zayan's hands shook as a stranger stared back from the mirror. "What happens if I turn away?" Zayan whispered. The shadow flickered, filling the room. "You choose," it whispered back. "Keep this hollow throne, or step into the cold, and finally exist as yourself." Zayan walked into the schoolyard at dawn. Students waved and called his name from every direction, but he did not wave back. His gaze remained fixed on the old oak tree at the edge of the field, ignoring the superficial noise of the crowd. The shadow detached itself from his feet, looming tall against the bark. "If you leave me, you will become invisible again," it hissed. Zayan gripped his bag straps until his knuckles turned white. "I would rather be alone than fake," he whispered. Suddenly, the shadow shrieked like tearing metal. Black smoke erupted as it shattered into glass shards that dissolved into the wind. The following week was a blur of cold shoulders and empty hallways. People walked past him as if he were made of thin air. Zayan sat alone under the tree, staring at his empty hands, feeling the heavy price of his new honesty. Footsteps crunched on the gravel. A boy from the hallway stopped and sat down without asking. He tore a sandwich in two and held out half. Zayan looked at the bread, then at the boy. He took the piece, nodding as he offered a genuine quiet. The morning sun hit the schoolyard with a cruel brightness, but Zayan did not join the laughing crowd. As classmates waved and called his name, he kept his gaze fixed on the dirt. He bypassed the main entrance, his boots crunching on the dry grass until he reached the oak tree. This was the same tree where his hollow popularity began. He sat against the trunk, pulled his knees to his chest, and watched his own shadow. "I am finished with these fake smiles," Zayan whispered. He was tired of the mask he wore for the world. His shadow stretched across the dirt, shifting into a jagged, ink-black shape. A voice rasped from the darkness. "You will be alone again. You will have nothing." Zayan gripped his wrists until his knuckles turned white. "I was always alone," he replied. "I just stopped lying to myself." The shadow shrieked, a sound like tearing metal and fractured into shards of smoke. Zayan gasped as the darkness peeled away from his skin, leaving a sharp, cold ache in his chest. The struggle was violent and final. The noise of the crowd faded into a haunting silence. He sat in the empty space under the branches, watching the last black fragments dissolve into the golden light. He was finally alone, and for the first time in his life, he was free.